Namaste. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference 2026, Sacred Community and Walking the Path of Love Together. I'm Happy Jack, founder of Happy Jack Yoga, and our host for today. And this is our second annual gathering, bringing together over 40 beautiful souls, from monks to scholars to musicians, spiritual leaders, beautiful souls from around the world. And so we opened the conference a few weeks ago at Harvard Divinity School. We'll have the closing gathering at Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. Together we get to explore how devotion and spiritual community can support us in this path of Bhakti Yoga. As of now, well over nearly 7,000 beautiful souls have registered, including Harvard students, practitioners of Bhakti Yoga, yoga teachers, and spiritual seekers from around the world. It's meant to be a space for spiritual friendship, for shared inquiry, and for heartfelt conversation. And for those live with us, thank you for being here. Please leave a message in the chat. Let our guests know where you're calling from today. And wherever you are, thank you for being a part of our global Sangha. It's now our honor to welcome to the virtual stage an incredible, beautiful soul that we're going to get to know. I'll read a little bio, and then we'll officially welcome Visakha. Visakha received an Associate of Applied Science degree with honors from Rochester Institute of Technology, and shortly after published her first book, Photomicrography, Art and Techniques. In 1971, she traveled to India, where she met Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, read his Bhagavad Gita as it is, and eventually became a student. As a photographer, she traveled with and photographed Bhaktivedanta Swami and his students in India, Europe, and the United States. As a writer, she has written numerous magazine articles, as well as books, such as Our Most Dear Friend, Bhagavad Gita for Children, Bhagavad Gita, a Photographic Essay, which had an independent publisher book award, Harmony in the Bhagavad Gita, Lessons from a Life-Changing Move to the Wilderness, which also got big reviews, and my favorite, which I'm just getting into, 5 years, 11 months, and a lifetime of unexpected love. I'm just a few chapters in, but just incredibly written. Visakha also assists her husband, Yadubar Prabhu, in making documentary films, most recently a 90-minute biography on Bhaktivedanta Swami, called The Mantra, The Movement, and the Swami Who Started It All. For those who are part of our community, some of our Yoga Alliance certifications, it's a requirement to watch this documentary. It's so well done and just such a beautiful offering of Bhakti Yoga. They also have 2 beautiful daughters. Today, we are so excited to welcome Visakha Prabhu for a conversation on, get this title, From Presence to Practice, Lessons from Srila Prabhupada and Living the Bhagavad Gita in Sacred Community. Friends, if you are ready to welcome Visakha Prabhu, please throw your arms in the air and loudly chant, Haribol! Visakha Prabhu, welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference.
Thank you so much, Happy Jack. I'm just delighted to be with you.
So happy to be here with you. I've known about you for years, but we really got to meet a few months ago at Govardhan Eco Village, and we enjoyed some nice meals together and just had some really deep, meaningful conversations, strolling around the Govardhan Eco Village. I knew it in that moment that we were going to invite you to the conference, but I followed up a little bit later with the invitation. So there's so much we would love, and we will get into today, but will you start with, what was it that brought you to this path of seeking, this spiritual path, this path of Bhakti Yoga?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I had a long, long way to go to come to the path of Bhakti Yoga. I was born and raised in an atheistic family. My mother was part of the Roman Catholic Church in England, and she was very strict in following that. And when she came of age, she felt it was simply rituals with no substance behind it. She didn't see any reason to continue the practice, so she gave it up. And my father was born and raised in a strict Jewish family. and also felt very similarly. There were so many rules and regulations, but he didn't see any rhyme or reason to them. So when he came of age, he gave up religion also. So they raised me and my brother as atheists. The whole first 20 years of my life, I never went to any church or temple or synagogue or mosque, nothing. And I was a bit avid as an atheist. I really felt religious people couldn't face the facts of life, the cruel facts of life. And yet, at the same time, through my profession, I was trained as a photographer. I came in contact with wealthy people, with beautiful people, with very knowledgeable people, famous people. And in each case, I got to know them a little bit, and I found their lives were a mess in terms of their relationships, in terms of their values, in terms of their habits. So I became very confused because they had everything that we were supposed to strive for, and yet they were missing something substantial. And in that confused state, I was invited to go to India. I went as a photographer, and I came in contact with Srila Prabhupada and his followers. And over a period of 10 months, I realized what I was missing was spiritual life.
Wow. That's amazing. That's such a testament to, it doesn't matter where we are, it doesn't matter how we were brought up, like when the time is right, that kind of seed is planted in our heart. You said yes, you traveled to India, and I really appreciate this book. I mentioned I'm just at chapter 3, so I'm gotten to know atheist Visakha, and you're just getting ready to go to India, and I just think it's, but I've also flipped through a little bit and seen you were really there at some of the really prominent, beautiful moments of the Hare Krishna movement. And you were able to photograph it and just have such unique proximity to Srila Prabhupada. We could spend so much more time on your story, and we will. But would you just share, really, you had this rare blessing of being in such close personal association of Srila Prabhupada. If you close your eyes today, and what is the feeling of being in his presence? What is that like?
Yeah, that's a very special question. Actually, that question was the inspiration for writing 5 years, 11 months.
Wow.
But I was asked that, and then I sat for a long time and tried to express that through the book. And really, in some sense, it's inexpressible. It's kind of like going to Vrindavan. For those who have been to Vrindavan, when you cross the boundary and you enter the Dham, where Krishna had his pastimes, it's a very special feeling that, at least for me, it overcame me, and it was very uplifting. It gave me hope. Similarly to being in Srila Prabhupada's presence, I really had the urge to be a better person and to come closer to Krishna and really to please him, because he gave so much. I wanted to reciprocate what he was giving. It was so valuable. It was so transformative. And so it was a huge, we spent a month in Vrindavan, as you'll be reading, and it was just such a transformative experience. I like to say I went to Vrindavan as an atheist, and I left Vrindavan as a theist.
Wow.
And similarly, in Prabhupada's presence, that was even more strengthened. That feeling of wanting to come closer to God, wanting to understand who I am, wanting to understand how I can relate to God's creation and other people as spiritual beings.
Yeah.
So it was quite amazing, the impact that he had on me and so many others.
Wow. I feel like, and I'm sure it's by the mercy of the divine, the mercy of great Acharya like Prabhupada and then his disciples, because I've had a taste of that experience of just this idea of bhakti, it's somehow making me a better person. I too have a long way to go, but that's like how I describe it. And I was sharing before we went live, like my relationship with my parents, and it's somehow I'm becoming a little nicer, a little bit more service oriented, a little bit less self-centered, and it's beautiful. And to now, you've been doing this for over half a century. And again, so for those of us who have never met Prabhupada, which is most of us, What is something, but you've had this unique, rare proximity. What is something about Prabhupada that cannot be understood through his books alone?
Yeah, I think probably through his books and even his recordings, it may not come across how much he cared.
Mm-hmm.
He just cared intensely about fulfilling the instruction, the desire of his own teacher. And by fulfilling that and through receiving that, we also began to care more about other people, about life in general, about the purpose of our own life, about our own values and habits and how that impacted others that we were relating to. So that caring became really a driving force that I experienced from him, which also inspired me to want to please him, to want to do his bidding so that he could fulfill the desire of his spiritual master. So, in that sense, it's really a softening of the heart. You know, if the heart is hard, then it's more selfish, it's more about me. Whereas if this caring mood is there, it's not that we certainly ignore ourselves, we also care for ourselves, but we care for those in our environment, we care for the earth planet, we care for the other species. It becomes a very transformative, I would say, emotion that may not come out through his books as much as it did in his presence.
Mm. That's really helpful to hear because he was such a strong personality and he had such conviction. So to know, for those who didn't have that kind of intimate experience, that there's also that softer, caring side. I've heard that from other Prabhupada disciples as well. And just this idea of pleasing Prabhupada, it made me think of something. This might sound crazy. Just this morning, I was making my morning smoothie, protein smoothie after a workout, and something kind of came. I was listening to a podcast, and it was a Bhakti podcast, but all of a sudden they were talking about manifesting, and I was like, well, I'm not really focused on manifesting these days, but I actually said out loud to myself, there's nobody else around, I want to manifest more opportunities to serve, and that's not who I've been the last 45 years. And I'm like, so no longer is it like wanting more of the material things, but it's like, hey, how can we engage in beautiful services and be in association with amazing people? So just I love that you also had this taste for pleasing your teacher. And now you said that you went to India, to Vrindavan, as an atheist, and then after a month in Vrindavan, became a theist. And so that was like 1971 that you met. Who were you? So before you were an atheist, who did you really become? Like beyond just like, what does that mean, becoming a theist? Like how did it really impact you?
Well, it has a tremendous impact. I mean,
Yeah.
if I look at my habits, my values, my purpose, my goals as an atheist and then as a theist, every one of them has changed completely. Every one of them has changed completely. And a lot of it is based, as you're saying, on service. The idea that instead of getting for ourselves, for myself, I want to give to others. And I've actually done studies, and they find that people who are selfish are much less fulfilled and happy than those who are giving, even materially, those who volunteer, who give in charity. And so, what to speak if you're doing it for a metaphysical cause, if you're doing it for the divine? Then it gives tremendous pleasure to the heart because the divine is everywhere. And through the teachings of the scriptures, we can learn to see the divine in other people, in the creation, even in other species. And that gives trying to evoke that vision in ourselves and to serve others, knowing that they are part of the divine, is a tremendous source of inspiration.
Wow.
It changes everything.
Yeah. Was there a moment for you? Was there a moment where because you've now given 55 years or 56 years, 55 years, yeah, where it's like you decided, okay, I'm all in. So that's a huge shift already from atheist to theist. where you said, I'm giving my life, because you have. I mean, you're serving today, right now. You're at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and you continue to serve. Was there a moment where it just like clicked?
Well, probably there were many moments. I wouldn't know if there was a single moment. I mean, there were moments where the idea of others being spiritual beings rather than material beings was very powerfully present for me. And there were many moments with Prabhupada where what he said made so much sense in terms of reason and logic, and also just his own personality as a very attractive person. By what he said, by the way he acted, and again by his caring, his concern. All these things combined to make this very powerful transformation in me. So I don't know if I could point to a single moment, but when you compound them, it was irresistible. There was nothing I could do. It was like being swept away in a current.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, because I relate. And same with me. It's like there's just kind of keep taking one step forward in front of the other, and it feels right, and it feels natural, and I feel like my heart is pulled. It's not other times, other periods of life, I've kind of like pushed my way, or like had to use a lot of effort, where now there's like a pulling from within. So I totally relate with that. It's ongoing. There's like many moments and many milestones, and here's to many more for both of us. And so with your work as a photographer, you weren't just present as a student, but you were really observing deeply, like watching Prabhupada and watching him engage with the devotees and the different services. What did your lens allow you to see about Prabhupada that others might have missed in those moments?
And I think Prabhupada was exceptionally consistent
Wow.
in everything that he did, not just in his schedule, which was generally very consistent, although he would change it if there was need, if there was a call. But in terms of his goal, as I mentioned, to fulfill the instruction, the desire of his own teacher. And so it wasn't that he was inflexible, rather he was very flexible with the idea of fulfilling that goal. And that became tremendous, that steadiness, that consistency, that this is my goal, and there'll be innumerable ways to achieve that goal, and try to embrace as many of them, utilize as many of them as possible, progress over obstacles, progress over problems, and people might fall away, but you keep going. People might criticize, but you keep going. This consistency, this steadiness through thick and thin, ups and downs, was tremendous. I mean, other people might get swayed away or distracted when success comes, so many followers, so much opulence at your disposal. But he didn't. He used those followers, and he used whatever opulence that came to, again, push on the mission, push on the message in a very powerful way, and a very loving way also.
That's so beautiful and so powerful. I appreciate you using these words like loving and caring. And when was there a moment when you were observing and photographing Prabhupada and the community, or either you captured or almost captured, that really revealed his compassion, his humanity in some profound way?
Well, there was an extraordinary time in San Francisco in 1974 during the Rath Yatra. There was a long procession. It was like a parade down the main streets there. And towards the end of it, they put the deities, the Jagannath, Subhadra, Balaram deities on the stage there. And Prabhupada also went on the stage. And there was a kirtan, a very ecstatic kirtan. And at some point, Prabhupada got up from his seat, his what they call a vyasasana, and started to dance. He raised his arms in the air and started to dance. And there were thousands and thousands of people in front. And they all also raised their arms and started to dance. So I took a photograph. It's become one of the iconic photographs in the Hare Krishna movement, of Prabhupada on the stage dancing with the deities behind him. And all these arms you could see in the front black arms, white arms, small arms, big arms, male arms, female arms, all dancing, joining him in this really uproarious and uplifting occasion.
Unbelievable. As you describe that, I'm like, I've seen that photo, and now it's coming together. You took that photo.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. And just to have experienced that, um, just such a unique experience. How did Prabhupada, because the theme is really on sacred community, and we're talking about relationships, friendships, and cultivating community. How did Prabhupada care for the devotees while he's also guiding this global mission? Like he really had to be a leader, but yeah, how did he care for the devotees as well?
Well, I think, although, as you say, he wanted Krishna consciousness to spread throughout the world, but he was also very aware of his surroundings and the people in his surroundings. So, in other words, if someone came in and they were moody, perhaps discouraged in some way, he would respond to that. It wasn't that he would overlook that because he had a bigger mission, a bigger vision, but he was very personal and he could understand the individual's intuitive in that way, the individual's needs and how to encourage them so that they can get over whatever obstacles or problems they were facing. At one point, he said, each person is his own genius, which I thought was a very beautiful statement because each of us is a tiny part of God, and God is the genius, the ultimate perfect genius. So we have a little tiny spark of genius within us. And it's a matter of evoking that, using whatever skills we have in God's service. And so I was personally very thrilled just to understand that I could use photography in a spiritual way in the service of God. And so practically whatever anyone does or likes to do or would like to do, they can do in Krishna's service. This is very uplifting. And when varieties of skills come together in a community, one can encourage one another and really do things that individuals alone could not do.
That's so good. That's so refreshing and accessible. Now, when you share that, I think of like the different services. Like some people are incredible dancers or singers or kirtan leaders, and others just really know philosophy and they can teach in that way. I think when I think about different services, one of them is in the kitchen. I'm being just honest here. I mean, I'm not. I've never been so passionate or spent much time in the kitchen. So I guess my question, I'm curious, would Prabhupada or just as us as devotees, is there value in learning all of the different services, or would Prabhupada and would you guide us to, hey, if this is your nature, spend most of your time here, and if you're not musical, don't worry about the kirtan. If you're not so passionate about cooking, it's okay, focus in these other areas.
Yeah, I think that very much it should be driven by our propensity, because when we do what we love to do, and we do that in God's service, that's a special ecstasy, totally.
Yeah.
But there's also what's needed, and we don't want to ignore that. So you may not be a cook, I may not be a cook, but we have to eat. So we can at least learn the basics and make things sattvic in the mode of goodness so that we can offer them to the Lord. They're edible, let us say, offerable. And so in that way, we can be nourished spiritually and materially. So I think there are many things. I may not be a very good accountant, but still I have to pay my taxes.
Yeah.
I have to figure out my finances so that things work. So at least the basics should be there, but then we really explore and delve into and relish what we're attracted to naturally, what our propensity is, as you say.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That feels right. That feels like really aligned guidance. And so, I mean, we could spend easily the whole session talking about Prabhupada, and I'm sure he'll come up again. But I wanted to shift to, like, at some point, and because I haven't got there in the book yet, let us know. But years later, you made a radically different shift in community, and you came to Canada, here in my home country, out in the West Coast. You were living off the grid in a community called Sharanagati. What was it that can you tell us a little bit about that and what inspired that move?
Yeah. Well, my father-in-law at that point was very elderly, so we wanted to be near him. We were in Los Angeles. And when he passed away, we felt like we were free. We could live anywhere in the world practically. But we really wanted to experience simple living, high thinking. It was one of Prabhupada's missions also, to live off the land, to not be so dependent on all the machinery that we're so accustomed to and so forth. And also we wanted, our younger daughter at that time was only about 5 or so, and we wanted her to experience natural living, high thinking. So we moved to the Sharanagati, as you say, in the wilds of British Columbia on the other side of Canada from where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a small house there on a knoll, and for electricity we had solar panels. As you say, it's off the grid. So the energy would be funneled into some batteries, and we would use that for lighting for all our electrical needs. Simple, simple life.
That's so beautiful. I love, I mean, I'm not off the grid in that way, but I kind of live in the middle of nowhere here in Canada, and it's so Satvik, and so like, the lake is right there and surrounded by forest. There's something very healing and nourishing, and just like going for japa walks. I do miss association, but in Sharanagati, you would have had association because this was like a devotee community, which is pretty special. And so I'd be curious to know, what did you discover about yourself and or about community? You know, when everything became simple, more raw, or like really dependent on each other, dependent on nature. What did you discover about yourself?
Well, we had a small school there, Govardhan Academy. So my daughter would go to the school every day, and my husband was working on the films of Prabhupada, so he would go off to do that. So I was in total silence in this small house. Our closest neighbor was a 7-minute walk away. So it was quite, they were devotees, but we're all spread out in this huge
Okay.
valley. So I found, to my surprise, that my mind would constantly be chattering, constant chatter of my mind because of the complete silence and simplicity of the environment. And a lot of it was just the same thing over and over again. It was very useless chatter and really unhelpful in terms of my own purpose and goals. So I had to really deal with that, really deal with the chatter of my own mind, which when I was in Los Angeles, there were so many distractions and things going on. I wasn't so aware of that. So just to become aware of the power of thought and how my own thoughts were so disappointing to me was amazing.
Yeah, I totally relate with that. Often when I sit down to do japa, I mean, okay, maybe here's another. And I've asked this question before, but I'm like almost looking for approval. I do a lot of my japa walking. When I just sit here and I do some seated, it's I easily get distracted or uncomfortable, or it's just maybe I need to spend more time there, and I'll accept that. But I do a lot of mantra meditation while I'm walking in the forest, and it's just like breathing fresh air and moving and sunshine and connecting to nature. I feel connected to Krishna and to divinity. Is that okay? Is that okay for us, or should we be seated for 2 hours without moving?
Well, it really depends who you've asked. I've taken some of these japa courses
Yeah.
in which the leader of the course says you should sit and just chant. However, I've always objected to that personally because every morning, as part of Prabhupada's routine, he would go for an hour-long walk. And very often there would be conversations at that time, but sometimes while he walked, he would chant japa.
Yeah.
So I never vocalized my objection to the leader of the japa retreat saying that, but I always think I was with Prabhupada walking while he chanted japa. And even my husband and I filmed Prabhupada in his rooms in Los Angeles, and he was walking in his rooms chanting japa. There's photographs and films of that. So I also love to walk, and I also love to chant japa. So I also combine the two every day, if weather permitting. I'm in Great Britain. I don't go out in the rain, but when it's not raining and I have time, I always go out for at least a half hour, preferably more. and do a japa walk. And I also find it very helpful to be in nature and to be moving like that. Appreciate the surroundings and the
Yeah.
clean air.
Actually, now that you mention that, when I was at Govardhan Eco Village a few months ago and you were there, I met some devotees, some young women, and they said that they had been on some japa walks with you. And in fact, you go at a good pace, that, almost like Prabhupada, hard to keep up with, shows your health and your energy. But thank you for that. It's that, again, makes it accessible and feels right, at least where we are at this stage of our bhakti journey. So I want to shift a little bit more here, just because you're a prolific author, like so many books, and I've seen people saying in the chat, raving about your Gita for Children book, and so many. So your third book explores applying Bhagavad Gita in daily life. Could you share with us, because some of us, our yoga community is just discovering the Bhagavad Gita, kind of getting familiar with it. What does it actually look like to live the Bhagavad Gita, not just study it?
Hmm. Yeah, that's an important question because we want to go beyond theory to practice, or I certainly do. I think all of us do. And I found trying to take the teachings, even just some of the teachings of the Gita internally, my life was much more intentional. That in modern society especially, we're kind of on a conveyor belt, that this is what you do as a child, then you go to school, then you get a job, then you make money, then you have a family, da 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 da. Kind of a conveyor belt. But through the lens of the Bhagavad Gita, we can get off that conveyor belt and really understand, what is my own intention? Where do I want to go with my thoughts, with my abilities, with the energy that somehow or other I have by God's grace? And that makes a tremendous difference in life because we can be more conscious about ourselves, what we're going, our own goals and how we're gradually getting there, how we're relating to others in a healthy way, rather than perhaps a superficial way or a motivated way. I want something from this person. No. So I think the teachings of the Gita have a tremendous amount to offer in a very practical, day-to-day environment.
Yeah, that's my experience. For yourself, can you share a moment? Is there like a moment in your life where a teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, it like became real for you through lived experience, not just theory?
Yeah, I don't know, it was extraordinary for me. I don't know if it's going to sound extraordinary, but we were in Mumbai, which at that time was called Bombay. This is many years ago. And there are many famous sweet shops there. And we were in front of one very prominent sweet shop. It was early in the morning, right? And an ox cart came up and it was laden with these huge stainless steel jugs of fresh milk from the farm, right? So these strong men, they were pouring this milk into woks to cook it down to make milk sweets for the day, fresh milk sweets. And there were, I don't know, maybe half a dozen of these. They poured them all into different woks, started stirring them and left the empty containers on the side for the farmer to take back. So while I was watching, this beggar woman came up with 3 children and she tipped these jugs that were now empty into a container. And milk, there's a little bit of milk that lasts in the containers. Not all of it goes out, but if you let the container sit for a few minutes, there's, a few ounces of milk in the bottom, especially a big container. And so one by one, she did these 6 containers into her small container. And although she was poor, she was clean. Her children were clean. She was very attentive. She had a certain dignity about her. And these men who had emptied these containers and were now, they just totally ignored her. It was like I got the impression it was a daily affair. And just from her dignity and her conscientiousness with her children, I just felt this is a spiritual being. I just had this strong sensation this person is not a material being, but she has this spark of divinity in her. And although her circumstances are not ideal, far from ideal, she's really doing the best she can in her circumstances. And it was glorious in that way, really glorious.
That's so beautiful. And that's so beautiful that you can see it again, like a testament to the to bhakti and to really embodying the practice and living the Gita as you share. So I mean, sometimes some of the practices we enjoy. Maybe it's meditation, kirtan, prasadam. Honoring sanctified food. What are some of the hardest teachings of the Gita to really embody in our lives?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it goes back to this consistency idea that Prabhupada so excelled in, because we can, at the beginning, especially get a flush that bhakti is so blissful, ecstatic kirtans, wonderful prasadam, the devotees are very friendly. But then you'll find some devotees that perhaps aren't so compatible with you, or prasadam that perhaps disagrees with you, it's too spicy, what have you, or kirtans are too loud, or there could be so many problems that come up in life. And so we want to have that consistency that despite the obstacles that come, still we'll value the teachings of bhakti, the practices of bhakti, the importance of bhakti in our own lives, and in that way remain consistent despite whatever fate Krishna throws in our path as a test to overcome. Those things can actually strengthen us if we see them with the right consciousness. Rather than letting us become discouraged or feel hopeless, we can actually persevere if we have this sense of steadiness. No, I'm going to do this. I made a promise. This is the purpose that I see as valuable, and staying on the path in that way.
Yeah, I I love that. Let me ask this because I remember just in these first few chapters of the book, you mentioned, I mean, this is like early days, and you saw some devotees who are like so sincere, so pure, like so engaged, and others maybe a little on the periphery, as my language, not, kind of finding their way. And yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about like actually, I forget what I was going to ask. So let me jump to this. When it comes to sacred community, because that's really the theme of the conference, and this is like a fast-paced digital world. What guidance from Prabhupada do you think feels most essential for us right now?
Mm. Well, I think that certainly we want to keep the main thing, all of us.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, the things that are not main, if you will, the things that are perhaps trivial, secondary, details, petty even, if those can subside, and if we can keep the main thing, we'll find cohesion, we'll find commonality, we'll find a reason to go on despite everything, despite conflicts, which inevitably will come up, despite different understandings, which also will inevitably come up, but just keeping focused on actually the goal. And again, this steadiness and also gratitude. We've been given so much by Krishna that we often overlook it. We assume that it's there. But the idea to be grateful always for all that we've been given, the gifts, the richness of it. And this, I think, will make cohesion, will bind us
Yeah.
despite everything.
Love it. Gratitude. Keep I've heard that the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. That's so good. I remember what I was going to ask now. So this kind of idea of how like, some devotees it's very natural, others are, takes a little bit longer. I wanted to understand like of course we all have our own unique nature. We all have our own nature. Like when you say consistency, that's something that actually comes very natural to me. Like discipline and consistency. I got lots of other areas to grow. But like that's easy. And so if like what are the other qualities of a devotee that we want to cultivate, like in addition to consistency? Is there like the five or the six or the I know there's like 64 devotional practices from Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu, but is there like some core foundational qualities? I guess I ask because consistency, I feel like I've got that one. And what are some of the other ones that I'm sure I need to work on?
Mm. Yeah, I think taking guidance from Prabhupada, in responding to that, I like to call him the personification of encouragement. He was just so encouraging for his followers. You may have heard the story that Prabhupada wanted to restart Back to Godhead magazine. He had started it in India.
Yeah.
So after he established the Hare Krishna movement in the West, he wanted to again start this. So he assigned it to one young man, one of his students. And the young man had no relationship to magazines except to read them. He had no idea about writing, editing, publishing, distribution. And Prabhupada said, Krishna will help you. Just try. So this kind of encouragement, you see a spark there and fan the spark.
Yeah.
So if we can do this with each other, take Prabhupada's model, Prabhupada's guidance, that someone has a little interest in something, a little talent, and just encourage them, make that blossom. And it becomes very fulfilling for us as the encourager, and very, very fulfilling for the individual that we're addressing, because now they have purpose. And it's something probably that they have an inclination to anyway. And so when you combine those, and they learn as they go, and then it's used to help such a worthy cause, it becomes truly ecstatic.
Yeah. I love that. That's been my experience. That's the beautiful thing about this Bhakti Yoga community, is that encouragement and empowerment and just upliftment. And that was my experience, anytime that we had some really nice conversations together in India. And so again, coming back to sacred community, I'm just looking around. We got friends here in Canada, our friend Evelyn. We got Shraddhanjali down in the States. We got Nityananda Chandra in New York, Swati in Mumbai, lots of beautiful souls. And so if someone who's watching the replay or here with us, if they're longing for spiritual community, but they haven't found one yet, where would you suggest that they begin?
I think a real critical component is association or good company. So even if we can find just one other person that we resonate with, and it may not be in the town, like you say, you're very isolated there, but fortunately we have now the phone, we have Zoom, we have so many ways, email, that we can WhatsApp, we can keep in touch. And that little relationship with somebody else who has the same purpose, the same goals, or very similar, that little communication can really help us grow in Krishna consciousness. And then if you have perhaps a reading group, like I'm part of 2 or 3 reading groups every week. So a few of us get together, we read, we discuss, we try to understand from different points of view, turn it like a diamond, you see different facets of it. That's also wonderful. And then also now we have this wisdom of the sages. I think you had Raghunath.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful opportunity to hear their podcasts, and now they have these sage groups.
Yeah.
And again, it's online. So there's no barrier as far as where you are in the world. There may be a time difference that has to be accounted for, but you can be part of this little sage group and go on retreats periodically to India, as you did. Yeah. So there's so many opportunities to combine forces and find strength there. Camaraderie.
Yeah. I love that. And it's beautiful, the encouragement. I mean, even just as we were preparing for this session, exchanging a few WhatsApp messages, and so many times you're just like so encouraging, and really appreciate that. Just having good people in our lives that believe in us and inspire us to keep going. So bringing it back to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. If Prabhupada was here today, what do you think that he would most want us to understand about love, about service, and about community?
Well, I found a quote. I saw this question before, and I found a quote. I wonder if I could read that quote. It's from Prabhupada, from one of his purports in Srimad Bhagavatam. Not very long, just a few sentences.
Please.
So he says here, everyone should be friendly for the service of the Lord. Everyone should praise another's service to the Lord and not be proud of his own service. This is the way of Vaishnava thinking, Vaikuntha thinking. Everyone should be allowed to render service to the Lord to the best of his ability, and everyone should appreciate the service of others. Such are the activities of Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means the spiritual world. Since everyone is a servant, everyone is on the same platform and is allowed to serve the Lord according to his ability.
It's so beautiful. I appreciate that you ground these powerful words in the Shastra, like going right to what did Prabhupada say? What is in the purport? What is Srimad Bhagavatam, the essential Bhakti Yoga text? I was saying to Visakha Prabhu before we went live, your team at Bhaktivedanta Manor has invited me to give a Bhagavatam class in a few weeks, and I, kind of froze up, like I've never done that before, and I actually initially I said, I'm sorry, I'm new, like I can't do it, but then I followed up and I'm like, no, I mean at some point I've got to give it, and what a beautiful opportunity and an invitation. But I love that what I'm learning from individuals like yourself is that like leverage the Shastra. It's right there. Prabhupada's teachings, the essence of Bhakti Yoga is right there, and that's what we're there to share. It's not about how much we know, or it's about passing on the tradition. So thank you for really grounding us in that. And maybe one final question, and then we'll open it up to audience Q&A. If you could leave this global sangha, all these beautiful souls here, if you could leave us with one living instruction, something that we could carry with us into our relationships, into our communities, starting today, what would it be?
Well, I would encourage everyone to never stop learning, never stop being curious, never stop empathizing with others, and also, especially, I would say, trying to see the world and ourselves through the lens of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. I think those things will keep us very much alive in Krishna consciousness and spiritual consciousness, and also fresh. It's a fresh perspective. That was one thing about being with Prabhupada. You could ask him a question, and you'd know 100% his answer would be God conscious. But what angle he would take, you could never predict. There were so many angles to take. And they're all available through this lens of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And so I think if we keep learning, keep being curious, keep empathizing with others, and keep ourselves grounded in the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, that would be very pleasing to Prabhupada, and it would be very fulfilling to our own hearts and minds.
Yeah, we can see that there's just such congruence with what you're sharing and how you're living it, and it's so inspiring. Really, thank you so much for sharing this with us. I would have many more questions, but we want to open it up to the audience, reflections, questions for Visakha Prabhu. I might just begin by calling on a friend. Evelyn, can we bring you on? Oh my goodness. It's just such a pleasure to have you here with us at Bhakti Yoga Conference. If you just hit the unmute button. Evelyn did our yoga teacher training. It was like 10 years ago now, here in Muskoka, Canada. And you do such beautiful service you've had a dance school in Muskoka for many, many years. You've been here at like almost every Bhakti Yoga Conference session and just like taking notes, just such beautiful energy. Reflections or questions for Visakha?
If the spirit is in us, if each one of us has a piece of the divine, could it mean then that we are closest to our higher power by being closest to another human being?
I think if we understand that we are spiritual beings, and the other person is also a spiritual being, that creates certainly a closeness, but that closeness has to be related to the Supreme Person. You have to see everyone in relation to the Supreme Person, that I am servant, subservient, Supreme Person. The other person is similarly subservient to the Supreme Person. And so that makes us bound together in a spirit of service to the Supreme.
Thank you.
Beautiful question.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah.
Thank you, Evelyn. Thank you for being here. Just while we have you for a moment, what has as you've been on this bhakti journey? Because 10 years ago, when you and I were into yoga, doing your yoga teacher training, it was like all about asana. We did a little bit of meditation, a little bit of breath work. Now here we are in this bhakti conversation. What is there like one takeaway or something that's resonated with you about bhakti?
Um, I been trying to study different paths, and what I find there's a similarity through all of them, and I guess it really boils down to trust God, clean house, and help others.
Nice. Trust God, clean house, and help others.
And help others.
Wow.
It's really simple. I have to keep things simple because I'm ADHD. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Beautiful reflections. Let's send our love, gratitude to Evelyn right here in Muskoka, Ontario, Canada. So we haven't talked in 10 years. It's so wonderful to connect. Let us bring it to Swati in Mumbai, who's also here every day, our teenager. And you're such an old soul, so it doesn't even make sense that you're a teenager, but you're a teenager and so sincerely practicing bhakti. Swati, what's on your heart?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance. It's such an amazing blessing to be in association with you, and like just being Prabhupada has happened, and like it's such amazing, and like everything you said is such a connected vibe. So like I've always heard Prabhupada, like I have never actually had that amazing blessing to have actually. So my question is that as we have never really associated with this. We try to associate with Prabhupada through the books and like through the lectures recording. And when I really want to know as as your perspective when he left his full body, material body. So how did you cope up with that? Because we never really were personally associated. But we are when still we hear him, we want he should be there. Like if he was here, then things would be really different. So if you could kindly walk through.
I had trouble understanding. Did you understand?
So essentially, when Prabhupada left his body, what was your experience? Because here's this great example of Acharya, your spiritual teacher, and then he was gone. There, it seems like there's this big gap, big missing. How did you navigate that, and what was your experience?
Yeah, I tried my best to express that in 5 years, 11 months. It was truly traumatic for us because we were so dependent. We're like children depending on the Father in every way. And all of a sudden he's gone and we feel very lost, very confused. And yet he prepared us for that because he said he lives in his books. He said, I live in my books and you shall utilize. Usually people quote that, they only quote the first part, I live in my books. But the second part was, you shall utilize. So he really wanted us to become strong in understanding his words, his written words, and of course his example, his recordings, and so many letters, and to base our lives on that and not become deviated and distracted, as it's so easy to do. And so in our lost condition, we held on. We took certain vows at the time we became his students. So we held on to those vows, especially chanting. And we held on to his instructions, his books, and prayed ardently.
I have one more thing to ask. Actually, I've read Leelamrit Part 1 and 2 only, and I've seen at such a young age, when they were I think they were done with their high school with such a young age, they actually surrendered to Prabhupada. How it was such a unknown to the whole world. What was thing that really made devotees surrender unto him?
Yeah. So the question, like yourself, Visakha, you were so young when you completely surrendered your life to Prabhupada. I have that question as well, Swati. But you are that young, teenager who is giving yourself fully to bhakti. I was not ready for that. I'm 45 now, and just not till 40 was I like ready for bhakti. So I also have that question. How did these 20-year-olds, what was it about the experience that had them just be like, we're all in, like there's something about this, and just surrender completely?
Well, this is in the 60s in the US, and it was a time of great turmoil during the 60s. There was this war in Vietnam, and there were protests, huge protests against the war. There was also this movement for women's liberation that was very powerful at the time. And the young people, like myself, we saw the examples of our parents, and we didn't really want to follow that pattern, the path that they set for us. You get a job, you get a house, you make money, you have a family, da da da. We wanted something more besides the security and the comfort. So we were seeking, and a lot of us were seeking in terms of drugs, in terms of very loose sexual relationships. And then when we found Prabhupada's message and the way he exemplified that message, we thought, here is something substantial. Here is something real. Here is something we can do that will not be self-destructive, but will be very constructive for ourselves and for others. So yeah, we gave up our jobs, we gave up our education, we left our parents' home and said to Prabhupada, here we are. Use us as you will.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And like it's such an amazing blessing that you actually did that and we are getting such amazing thing. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Swati.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Swati. You're definitely one of those young bright lights. So we're sending our love, blessings, gratitude to Mumbai, India, formerly Bombay, as we learned. All right, let's get. Okay, I'm gonna come to Rachna first, but I see we got another one after. Rachna in the car. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, and Hare Krishna, everyone. We are so thankful that you made a decision in 60 so that we can get Krishna consciousness now. So we are so much grateful and full of gratitude towards you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so
Beautiful.
much for you among us.
Yeah, and where just so we know, where are you calling in from, Rachna?
We are in Columbia, Missouri.
That's right, Columbia, Missouri. Amazing. Well, we are sending our love, gratitude, blessings to Columbia, Missouri, and very, very much a devotee by sharing the love with Visakha. Madhu Mangal Prabhu, final question. Are you able to come on video? We can spotlight you and bring you on down. Oh yeah, you're off. It's so funny. I thought that was your background. It was like you weren't moving. I thought that was your background photo, but here you are. Welcome back.
Hare Krishna, Dandavats from Mexico. Thank you for having me again. Yeah, to be honest, the question that I was first going to make was made by Swati, so thank you, about how do you handle separation from Guru. And yeah, thank you very much for that. Also, of course, thank you, Mataji, for the awesome talk. And the question I would have is, can you share with us the number or where we can find the quote from Srila Prabhupada about appreciating others' service, please?
Yeah, that's in the 7th canto. I'll have to look up the exact, yeah, I don't have it written down. It's in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. What I can do is tell Happy Jack the exact quote, and then perhaps he can pass it on to you.
Yeah,
thank you.
I'll put it under the replay of the video, so for everybody watching. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Great. You've been so engaged as well, Madhu Mangala. What is something you're going to take from this session today as you step into the rest of your day in your services and with your family? What is something that you'll carry in your heart with you, Prabhu?
From today, definitely, I have heard the phrase fanning the spark before, but I've never really understood it until today. How we all have this like love for Krishna underlying, and as soon as we get that spark, we should take care of it and start fanning it so we can get more and more bhakti and more love. And yeah, just like how to be consistent in our practice and how to surround ourselves with people that actually fan that spark and make that fire grow. and leave the association that doesn't help that spark grow. So yeah, that's the first time I actually understand that, and I will take that for sure. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. You are definitely the spark, Prabhu. You're a bright light, and we feel your energy and grateful for your presence. And I just saw, you'll have to double check it, but it was shared, Sati Devi Dasi shared that 7th canto, 5th chapter, 12th verse. You can double check that. But let's
appreciate so much.
Yeah, we're sending our love, gratitude down to Madhu Mangal Prabhu, representing Mexico. Muchas gracias. Wow, amazing. I mean, we could spend, and hopefully, Krishna willing, we will spend many more hours together in conversation, Visakha Prabhu. But just as we wrap up now, what would you leave us with? You know, for us yoga teachers, yogis, some devotees here, you know, kind of sincerely seeking, having this taste for bhakti, what would you leave us with?
Yeah, I think that within each of us, there's this, as he's saying, this spark of enthusiasm within each of us naturally. And we really want to have that enthusiasm blossom as much as possible. Without enthusiasm, you can't do anything. You can't do yoga. You can't eat food practically. So we want to have this fresh challenge in our lives. Prabhupada wrote a letter to that effect, that we have a challenge that we want to aspire to attain and keep it always fresh and always new. And in that way, we can rise to meet that challenge. And the best challenge is to try to become a full-fledged devotee of Krishna, a full-fledged practitioner of Bhakti Yoga. And if we keep that enthusiasm first and foremost, we will surely please Krishna in the course of our lives.
Wow. Just everything that you're sharing, it feels so aligned in my heart. It speaks to my soul. I really thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I see lots of heart emojis being shared from around the world. South Africa is sharing lots of beautiful posts here as well in the chat. Visakha Prabhu, thank you for being with us. Beautiful souls around the world, thank you for being with us. We got one more virtual session in an hour from now, and then we got a break until the finale. But wishing you an amazing rest of the day. Get some fresh air. Get outside. Maybe chant some mantra. We've been given permission. Go chant some mantra out in the nature. And wishing you an amazing rest of the day, dear friends. And we will see you again very soon.
Thank you, Happy Jack, for arranging the Bhakti Yoga Conference. It's a wonderful accomplishment.
Well, we're
valuable
so
accomplishment.
Thank you for the kind words. What makes it so great is the teachers like yourself. This is what has us inspired to be here. So thank you for sharing. Wishing you all an amazing rest of the day, and we'll see you soon.
Haribol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Haribol.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.